On This Week in Sales, we're going to be taking a look at Gong unveiling essentially all of the products, guided selling, B2B buyers having cold feet, and much, much more. My name is Will Barron. I'm the founder over at salesman.org, and joining me, co-host of this show, sales royalty, Victor Antonio. How's it going, mate?
It is going good, Will. How you doing, man? We haven't talked in a while, like 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah, well, I still really don't understand what Thanksgiving is. Clearly, it's a big deal in the US, but that was the confusion last week, right?
Now, what's hard to understand about Thanksgiving, you give thanks, Will. I mean, this is not a complicated subject, Will. We're starting off on a bad foot already.
Yeah, but I understand. It's like Christmas. Baby Jesus was born, although he wasn't born in December at all anyway. I think he was born in the summer. That's all like debatable. But what is Thanksgiving for anyone who isn't in the US? What's the 30-second pitch of what it is?
Oh, my God. So, the Pilgrims landed in 1492. I think they eventually had to sit down with the resident native Indians to give thanks for all the bounty. The Indians had helped them kind of survive the winter. And so I think it's celebrated as a just get together and be thankful for everything we have here in the United States.
Fair enough. Very good. All right, then.
Yeah. I think I got everybody in there. I got the Pilgrims. I got the Pioneers. I got,
you've offended someone, undoubtedly.
Yeah, I'm sure I have. I'm sure I have, man. So, yeah, all is good, though.
Cool. All right, then. Well, let's jump into some sales news. First up, as I juggle this, Gong unveils its centralized platform for revenue teams. I'm just going to give you some of the bump here, because essentially they've unveiled like 27 different products. Company launches, the company launches the Gong Reality platform, including new products and ecosystem integrations to drive productivity and effectiveness for revenue professionals. Gong today previewed new product and ecosystem integrations, including Gong Assist for increased productivity through automated task management and reality-based forecasting for streamlined forecasting. And Gong also, Victor, they also introduced the Gong Collective for more robust insights into data from other critical revenue systems. My question to you, Victor Antonio, and this is from the finance blog at yahoo.com. My question to you, Victor Antonio, is, did we get all of this wrong, saying for the past year that we've been recording This Week in Sales, that Gong was going to get acquired? Is Gong just going hell to everyone and just building every other product in the tech stack so that they're going to be the one remaining that has the big list of everything that we all need, as opposed to being acquired or acquiring other products?
It could be either, so we may be totally wrong, but we may be right at this also. Totally wrong is maybe we did get it wrong. Maybe they're just going to build this collective. I like that. It's like the Borg in Star Trek. We are building the Borg. We want everybody to think the same. All the conversation has to be the same. Newspeak 1984 via the collective, right? The other side might be that they're just really building value, and they'll eventually be acquired by somebody else. But again, I mean, they're really building out the big stuff. I mean, like the conversation platform is big. So good for them. I mean, they're moving in the right direction. I mean, Amit Bendoff and his team knows what they're doing, apparently.
For sure. Seems like they're absolutely killing it. If you've got, because I've not seen them raise any money for a while. So I know nothing about this space whatsoever with regards to raising capital, finance, venture capital, all that kind of stuff. But let's assume that they're somewhat profitable, that they've got cash to throw back in things. Just at this stage of the organization and what they're doing, and conversational intelligence being so new, that's an amazing feat in its own right, to be able to go in multiple directions and spin off other products and services. That's incredible.
Yeah. One of the things I mentioned in my book, and this might be a play, Will, one of the things I mentioned in the book, that Sales Ex Machina, is that I said, conversations are a new corporate asset, right? And so what we're seeing with Gong, if we can draw a parallel to Facebook, you know how Facebook, you put all your pictures up there and it's sunk cost, right? You've invested so much in putting information in there. You just stay on Facebook. You don't want to go to another platform. I think what might be also happening is that Gong is collecting so much data through all these conversations, all these different companies, and I'm sure they're anonymizing, who these conversations are coming from, that is just creating some serious value for the company. So maybe the real value is not so much in the acquisition or the add-on augmentation, the collective of all these different pieces, because I think many companies can do that. But I think it might be that data, that conversation data that they hold.
Yeah, and if they can do an apple and wall off that data from anyone else, maybe they don't need to be acquired, right? Maybe the data is, you stack over product services on top of it, which makes your data, you're increasing your own arbitrage, you're on your own asset, right?
Well looked at, yeah, because I mean, you will now go to Gong if you wanted some serious data.
Mm-hmm.
So now they become this reservoir of data. So that's a great way of looking at it.
Cool. Well, let's rattle through some of these business tech kind of topics, and we'll get to some more interesting ones towards the end of the show that I know you put in the doc. So next up, as I juggle this, I'll get faster at doing this eventually. Category leader, although I've never heard of them, but they're a category leader. Clue raises $62 million to accelerate its competitive enablement platform. So my question to you, Victor, first off, have you heard of this industry leader?
No, didn't have a clue about Clue. Sorry, had to throw that in there. Had no clue who Clue was. But because you posted this and I read it in the document and I looked at their website real quickly and the release. So it looks like, again, another competitive enablement company. I don't know, but $62 million B series, Series B investment. That means they must be doing something right.
For sure. Even if there is a bubble in the sales technology space right now, even if, again, I don't know anything about the space, I'm just analyzing this from a layperson's perspective, that is still a crap load of money from any angle for a Series B, right? It's not even like the organization is 5, 6, 20 years into things and expanding and has kind of like that portfolio of products like what Gong has. But just to be throwing that money tells me, as it signaled to you, Victor, that they're onto something here. So this is an article, this is a press release from prnewswire.com. Clue, the AI-powered competitive enablement platform, today announced a $62 million Series B investment. Companies are being disrupted faster and competition is increasing across every category. Yet, today, many companies rely on a slow, inefficient, and inaccurate process of collecting and delivering market insights. Clue, the whole point of the business, Clue shapes how enterprise leaders think about competitive enablement, helping collect and curate intelligence from multiple sources, which I thought was interesting, of both internal and external to their own organization and the companies that have been prospected as well. A lot of this seems to be crowdsourced, and we covered last week, I forget the company, which is really bad, but they were crowdsourcing user data, phone numbers, email addresses. Is this another trend that we're going to see moving forward, Victor, of these sales tech companies and those salespeople relying on the back of these sales tech companies pushing crowdsourcing as a mechanism to build, I guess, resilience in the fact that LinkedIn are stopping companies scraping just the LinkedIn databases and contact information now. That's becoming harder and harder. And crowdsourcing also to verify some of this data, because we've all been there. You've probably been there as well. You get a number from some kind of database, you call it, and it's Mary, and she's in the bath, and she's 72, and she has no idea why you're calling her, because the data is just completely wrong.
Your visuals are horrible sometimes, but thank you very much. Again, this gets back to the original point. I think if you kind of wipe the shine off of a lot of these companies, well, I think at their very essence, they've become good at collecting data, and as they say, helping collect and curate intelligence from multiple sources. I think there's the value. I still wonder, well, and maybe it's just we need to go work for some of these companies for a month or something to figure this out, to really understand them. But again, I've seen people use some of these multiple source data platforms, and they're still having a hard time extracting real intelligence from them. So it's not so much collecting the data or curating it. It's how do you turn that into actionable, strategic deployment strategies, if I can put it that way. I think that's going to be the big challenge.
I agree. I personally have not seen all of this data actioned on in a way that massively separates one organization from another. As in, it's so binary that this company has this tool or service, this company doesn't, and this company dominates the other organization. I've not seen that play out. I don't know if that ever would play out, but that would then be telling me, that would be all the evidence I need to heavily invest my own cash, if I can, whatever possible, to jump into some of these organizations and start using them in our own team as well. Have you seen anything in the market, or from customers, or because you seemingly deal with and do a lot more consulting in the kind of field than what I do, Victor? Have you seen anyone have such a binary experience where they go, we could just not live without this blah blah blah.io software tool?
I think we're going to look back. The answer is no. I think we're going to be looking back at this period going, this was the time when people were trying to figure out what do they do with all this data and all these different tools. My visual in my head is that, as you know, well, I like doing some word working now. And it's like, I can buy all the tools in the world. I can buy all the schematics to design different things. But at the end of the day, I have to find a way to build it, put it together, and deploy it. And I still think this is going to be the challenge. I bet you a lot of these companies are banking in on the data. We talked about that already. But the way a lot of companies are using it, I bet you it's not 100% utilization. I bet you they're maybe thin slicing and using maybe 5 or 10% of its full capacity. That's what I would think.
For sure.
That's my guess. By the way, if I'm wrong, if you see it different, hit that in the chat. Love to hear your feedback on that.
Yeah, for sure. And as the show, hopefully moving forward from this point on is live, if you have any questions, B2B sales, sales in general, business in general, we will answer them at the end of the show. If there's a couple of them, we'll run through them. So there we go. And everything we talk about is available in the show notes of this episode over at This Week in Sales as well, in case you're not watching this live and you want to comment, you want to give us your opinions. Okay, next up, this is an article from itproportal.com. entitled B2B Firms Are Getting Cold Feet on Buying Decisions. Victor, does that title surprise you?
Oh, no. Only because over the weekend I was reading articles, or I guess the pundits are talking about what 2022 is going to look like, and there's already a lot of shakiness going on. And this is before the what's that called? Omicron. Mm-hmm. That sounds like a transformer planet. Omicron, that whole thing hit. And they're talking about already, slow down next year, even before that really hits. So this doesn't surprise me.
Victor Antonio, you're an engineer. You're a logical person. You have a level head on you. If you were going to name a coronavirus variant that literally billions of people are going to be hearing for years to come, presumably, after one letter in the Greek alphabet, would you have chosen Omicron?
No. Here's why. Because if you re-scramble the word, it spells moronic.
Yeah. My missus said that this morning when I was going on about it.
I was like, first of all, it really does sound like a transformer. For anybody who watches Transformers, the cartoon, Omicron. Let us go to Omicron to find the energon cubes, right? So. No, I wouldn't have chosen that name. I think I would have given it something more serious, I don't know what.
The coronavirus B variant, Z variant. Yeah. I understand the history behind using the Greek alphabet and the reasons for that within like medicine and research. But for something that's going to be communicated on TV, on the internet, wherever it is people are consuming content, it just seems like a really bad just effort on the communication part of scientists as a whole.
Omicron needs a better PR agent. That's all I know.
There we go. Okay, so this article, itproportal.com, entitled B2B Firms Are Getting Cold Feet on Buying Decisions. B2B businesses, organizations are getting cold feet when it comes to buying decisions as a result of the pandemic, new data suggests. According to a report from sales enablement platform, our friends over at Showpad, 46% of B2B buyers have paused their buying decisions since March last year, while 43% have deprioritized them. This is a quote. That's
shocking, by the way. That number is shocking to me. Well, so I was surprised when I read that number. I was surprised.
This is a quote from Dustin Deno, Senior Vice President of Global Sales at Showpad. In 2020, the shift towards remote selling was a huge upheaval for many B2B sales and their organizations. Teams had to pivot immediately to a completely new type of buyer and implement new sales approaches, which rely on the use of digital technologies. He goes on to say, this new buy profile has persisted throughout 2021, with buyers increasingly intolerant of cold outreach and requiring relevant, comprehensive information fast. Victor Antonio, is the cold call dead?
No, I still refuse to bury that thing because I still think it's an integral part of selling. But again, we have to respect, we've talked about this ad nauseum, Will. You got to respect the customer journey, right? Customers want to find information on their own and eventually reach out to you. There's going to be cases where you want to reach out, cold call. I still prefer a cold call over an email, right? And that's order. I'd rather do cold call, then send an email. So it's not dead, but these numbers are kind of surprising, though. Again, 46% of B2B buyers have paused their buying since last year, Will. I mean, this is huge, man. This is big.
Yeah, and it's difficult to, when you say, right, this is why some of these numbers are difficult to parse out into the real world of, if you interview, say, 1,000 professional buyers, so let's assume that we're not, and I don't know this to be true, let's assume that we're not interviewing and asking questions to middle management who may have authority, may not have authority. They're just random schmucks filling in a survey. Now, the problem with some of these surveys and this data is who the heck has time to fill in a survey? So I'm not sure if I can trust any of it anyway, because you mustn't, high performing B2B procurement agents are not filling out online surveys for sales enablement companies, right? They're just not.
Correct.
So with all that said, it's difficult to parse some of this out because we're assuming that we're dealing with B2B buyers who have budget, who are regularly spending. What does it mean to put things on pause? What does it mean to deprioritize things? Does it mean that, hey, well, it wasn't that big of a deal anyway, so I may not have made a purchase. I was just in the kind of data gathering stage of the buying cycle. Or does it mean, hey, we were just about to spend $25 million on a new CRM system and a 2-year, 20-year contract, whatever it is, and we just went stop because we need to keep an eye on profitability, on revenue, and reduce our outgoings. A lot of this data is a bit wishy-washy, so it may not be as doom and gloom as what it makes out, but it's certainly not ideal for B2B sellers, right?
I go with your later proposal that that I think that's more likely that they're seeing a slowdown, or there's so much upheaval in the market world that they're kind of saying, you know what, let's not do a 2-3 year commitment. Let's put everything on pause. Let's slow it down a little bit. Doesn't mean they're not going to buy. So that I like that theory because I think it's more plausible than, hey, we're just going to stop. I think they're looking at their cost structures and reanalyzing how they're going to not only structure their company, but how they're going to go to market and where they can use technology where they can't. And that requires some thinking through, if you know what I mean.
But what I'm interested in, Victor, is if they can hold off for 18 months on buying a product or service, then they probably don't need that product or service as much as what they thought they did. So there's going to be tons of salespeople who have got started pre-pandemic with big fat pipelines of people who are like, yes, this is going to happen, it's definitely going to, and they're going to get the emails, the calls during the pandemic of, hey, look, just hold off, stop pestering me, stop cold calling me. We'll get back in touch with you. And then 2 years later, who knows, after Omicron, 5 years later, as all this shenanigans starts to die down, one, the market's shifted anyway. So what you were going to purchase to solve a problem there might be better, different solutions out there. So that deal is maybe dead. But then people go, well, I didn't really need to buy it anyway because we've done just fine in the meantime. So salespeople's pipelines and any forecasting right now must be absolutely insane.
That's a great summary, Noah. I love that. Again, everything, all the above what you just said. It would be interesting to see, what percentage of that pipeline actually dies. Like when something is put on pause for more than, let's use your number, 18 months, what percentage of that pipeline really is valid anymore? Because now you got to go back and revalidate. If not revalidate, you got to go repropose, reapprove, go through a committee. And so you're right, the forecasting might be a little off this coming year. So that's a really interesting perspective.
How would you deal with that from a sales leadership perspective, Victor? How would you... Victor Antonio Enterprises has a staff of 25 B2B sales professionals selling medium to large size deals. And, you're a good sales leader, so you understand the market shifted. The bottom has fell out of everything. Everyone's holding on to the cash and waiting for some certainty in their own markets before they'll spend with you. So you understand that targets have been revised, all the obvious things. But what do you, I guess, looking from up and then down, how do you communicate with C-suite leadership who are going, we've got shareholders that we need to, deal with here. I don't care about the marketplace. Do something about this. And then how do you communicate down to your team that I know things are tough, but I need you to essentially pull a rabbit out of the hat?
Yeah, I think it's like fighting for budget line survival, right? You were in their budget originally. You want to stay on that list, not drop off. So from a management standpoint, I think it's, and I hate to sound so like basic about this, but you got to learn how to position the value and really recreate that value for them. In other words, even though this would be my pitch in a nutshell, even though the market has shifted, here's where we still play and where we're still helping you with your either sales, reducing costs, or expanding your market share. They would have to be able to sell that value. The sales team would have to be able to sell that value. Now, what I would tell my sales team is, don't bank on them actually closing the deal. Let's double our efforts. Let's go after new markets or find adjacent markets to go after. In other words, what else can we sell? Let's not bank on the existing pipeline. Let's start building, can I call it a secondary pipeline?
Sure.
Just to make sure that we're supported.
For sure. And again, trying to put a positive. Well, it's a positive for one person in this scenario. But if you can survive, if you can keep that pipeline ticking over, hopefully some of your competitors are going to go under in the meantime, and so you might come out of this with more opportunity than what you went into it with potentially.
Yeah, it will. If you had a sales team, what would you tell them? What would your strategy? You're questioning the pipeline 18 months in. Mm-hmm. Some of these deals keep getting pushed out. How would you deal with it?
I would first off I've got no sales management experience whatsoever, just to preface this, but I'd be super clear on the criteria for where deals are in the pipeline, what that means for a deal to be a sales marketing approved lead, whether things should be bounced back and forth between sales and marketing, whether we need to nurture these leads. I'd have it written down, defined, outlined, and everyone on the same track here so that we're all communicating via data. And I've never had this in any sales role ever. It's always just been all over the place. And I've had everything documented on paper. Then on the CRM. Then I would take a step back and go, okay, maybe at a friendly team meeting, like legitimately, Barry has got a full pipeline, criteria matched with everyone else. Sally, John, whoever has a slightly less pipeline. Barry, what are you doing to improve your pipeline, to fatten things up, to get more flow in there? And I would get them to communicate. I would take this as an opportunity, and now it's an 18-month opportunity. And this is assuming that the company's not going to go bankrupt next week, in which case all hell breaks loose, just get deals done, any ethical and legal way that you possibly can at that point. Because survival is obviously goal number one. But assuming that isn't the case, I would then be getting people in a room and saying, hey, look, this is all off the record. What are you doing? What aren't you doing? What are you struggling with? What can we help you with? And just getting everyone to, rather than, there's obviously going to be 1 or 2, 3 out of 25 people who are the A players, see how we can get everyone more on the same wavelength and use this as an opportunity of, hey, you might not be spending all day writing up contracts at the moment. How can we use this as an opportunity to improve our skill set so we come out of this flying, so we come out of this really crushing things? Oh, we've lost, I don't know if you can hear me, Victor, but we've lost your voice, sir. I can't hear you. No. So this is okay, everyone watching. We were expecting this. This is the ups and downs of live production as I sit here. But Victor Antonio, what I might ask you to do, my friend, you can hear me though. Okay, very odd. I cannot hear you at all. Nothing's changed at my end. Tell us what. What I'm going to ask you to do, Victor, is jump off Zoom, jump back in on that link, and we'll see if that makes any difference. In the meantime, I will jump in to the next story on This Week in Sales, whilst also monitoring Victor on the computer next to me to see what the heck is going on here. Okay, so this next story, how to improve sales effectiveness with guided selling. Let's dive into this very quickly. This is from customerthink.com. And I'm quoting here, over the past 4 years, more than half, 51% of top performing companies have either turned or plan to turn to artificial intelligence powered guided selling by 2025, according to Gartner. Victor, you back, mate? I definitely can't hear you. Which is not the end of the world. It's actually quite a nice, chilled, relaxed show now. We'll just have you on screen, Victor, chilling. We can see your beautiful face. You can just react to everything I'm saying. I'll just sit here and slag you off for the next 15 minutes, and we'll see where we go from there. If you just keep chatting, Victor, I don't know if there's anything you could try at your end, mate. But if we're not, if we're jumped out of Zoom, jump back in Zoom, I'm not sure what else we can try. Because you're definitely not getting any sound coming through Zoom itself. Okay, so I'll carry on with this article and we'll have a think about this in real time, see if I can split my brain in two. Over the past 4 years, more than half of top performing companies have either turned or plan to turn to artificial intelligence powered guided selling in 2025. Gartner says, quote, AI functionality has permanently transformed the form and function of guided selling capabilities. B2B sales organizations should help sellers improve sales execution by adding AI-guided selling to their sales stack. Those who adopt this solution spend 50% more of their time in productive prospecting and are 84% more likely to achieve their quotas. These are just some of the benefits. Which is crazy, right? If you can use AI to implement, if you can use AI at no cost other than a financial burden to improve your sales results, then it's a complete no-brainer and you should do it. Again, this is the caveat from all of these points and articles. A lot of these numbers come from AI, conversational analysis organizations. This one's from Gartner, though, who have done their own research, so I take some of that back. But if you can implement this, clearly it makes sense. And I don't think, Victor, I'm speaking out of turn here, perhaps, as he's chat boxing me. Victor says, keep going. We're going to keep going. If you can implement some of this, it makes total sense. And we just need more case studies. It's one thing to have a percentage point. It's one thing to have an organization who creates these tools say, well, we do this, this, and this. I've not seen any long-term comparison studies between splitting. This would be simple to do, and this is what should be done if the company's, if what people are pitching is accurate. If you've got a team of 100 staff, why not split the staff in half, trial the software, the tool for 6 months, and then come back to us with, hey, this team that was as randomly put together as what we possibly can. Obviously, if you've got A players in one and D players in the other, you're going to have different results. But as randomly as we can make this artificial study, the team that had the tool did better. The team that didn't have the tool did the same as before. If you could put that together, I would be a lot more convinced. And I think that would be an easy thing to do for any of these enterprise scale and sized companies that are clearly doing, clearly kind of up. Oh, Victor, I heard something then.
There you go. I think I don't know, something I reset something on my side and it worked. I don't know what happened. So there you go. Sorry about that. Can you hear? I don't know what happened. Well, I literally don't know what happened. So where were we at? Well, where are you at right now?
I was just blagging my way through your story here on how to improve effectiveness regarding selling. And I was saying, Victor, I'd be super convinced. And I don't understand why anyone hasn't done this as a case study. And if you have, please do comment below if you're watching this live, or drop us a message on thisweekinsales.com because I'd love to see it. If you've got a large enterprise sales team, 100 people, 1,000 people, why not split the team in half, have one use the tool, have one not use the tool, and see the data between the two?
Great idea.
I don't understand why companies aren't using these as case studies. I would, if anyone wants to do this with our training product, the Sell Made Simple Academy, I'll gift it to as a case study, and it might blow back in my face, but I'll on the show now, I'll say, I'll publicly share the results of this. I think this would be a cool experiment. We'll gift it to half your team. And if it works, and then they improve their sales results over a 3-month, 6-month period, then you can buy it for the other side of your team. I'm not giving it all away for free, but that would be a cool case study, and that would be just super. That would give so much clarity to the sales tech stack and the effectiveness of it.
I agree. What's shocking about this number down here? Did you see the bottom? I don't know if you read the bottom. Those who adopt this solution are able to spend 50% more time on their productive prospecting, and at least 84% more likely to achieve their quotas.
Yep.
Did you buy that? Spend
50% more of their time in productive prospecting. So it depends what that means, right? So we'll ignore that one.
Right.
But are at least 84% more likely to achieve their quota. That number is insane. That's incredible.
I'm like, I don't know. I want to see. I'm like you. I think I want to do this. The split testing case study. I like what you're saying. Split the group. You use it. You don't. Let's see what happens. Because I'm telling you right now, I have a problem believing in those numbers. That's a lot. 84% more likely to achieve their quota. By the way, I'm not arguing that we're moving towards that we're making great progress. I'm arguing, 2025, by the way, that's around the corner here. And so I'm just having a hard time believing it. I don't know. I'm just having a hard time believing it. It would be also interesting to see, Will, what type of companies these are. What type of companies are actually having this type of success? Small, medium-sized, large enterprise companies. Who is having this success? What products are they selling? Simple versus complex. Let's get that spectrum going. So I think there's more we need to know before we buy into that number.
I agree. Because if you take a company that has no data platform that they're pulling from and even give them a crappy AI data platform, it's a
Correct.
0 to 1 situation. So of course they're going to do better. But if they have a non-AI platform and you give them an AI platform, then I'd be interested to know those numbers as well. But we'll never know any of this because the only people who are going to do these studies are the organizations who benefit from having a headline number like that. So it's probably never going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things I keep hearing, is that people who are implementing these solutions, right, these enablement platform solutions, they need to hire extra people just to be able to run the platforms, to maintain the platforms, and guide the platforms. And I think, that we don't talk about that. Like, what infrastructure do you have to build around this platform? Because somebody has to manage the data. You need some type of, quant, some type of data scientist to manage all this stuff. You also need somebody to actually begin to extract the information. That's not a data scientist. Somebody who says, here's how we could use the information. So it would be interesting to see what type of infrastructure is being put around these enablement platforms. And I don't hear anybody talk about that. Have you?
No, I'm interested in that from a selfish standpoint because I love looking at the data and I love the idea. Like, I'm going to romanticize something that is inherently unromantic here, but I love the idea of you open your laptop, it tells you, hey, this person has triggered this event and this person's done this person's just got a promotion. Oh, Mary has just moved from one organization that you've done business with to an organization that uses a competitor product. You should probably give her a call. Here's her accurate number, accurate as of 3 days ago when your colleague or someone else within the database called upon this person. And then underneath it says that John doesn't want to call, he'd prefer a text, and he responds to text within 3 minutes. Drop John a text because it's his birthday tomorrow and his wife's just left him and his goldfish had just died. It's probably a good time to just kind of give him a pat on the back and make sure he's okay. I can't wait for that to exist. And when people talk about AI intelligence and AI this and AI that, surely that's what we're leading towards. And as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, it's not just text on a page. Maybe it's an avatar that we're engaging with that's our sales assistant, right? And the sales assistant pops on and is friendly and, hey, Will, have you had your cup of coffee this morning? Because I know you like a cup of coffee at 8:30 because I'm constantly watching you on your webcam and absorbing and analyzing your whole life to squeeze as much sales ability out of you as possible. But I'm your friendly sales avatar. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm not sitting.
Here's the dilemma. As you were saying that, I was like, it's an interesting dilemma here, the counter, because on one hand, you're saying, we got all these AI tools, right, that are going to help us become more intelligent about our customers. That's on one side. On the other side, we're also acknowledging the fact that customers want to, have their own journey. And the salespeople are now being minimized. In other words, we're using less salespeople to actually complete sales. So what are we building this platform for? To run by itself after a while? It's an interesting proposition, but I still say, I wonder how much real value companies are extracting. It's like CRMs. I think, did we cover that data already where a lot of people they have CRMs, what percentage actually use it and use it effectively, and how much of it do they actually use? And I think we're in the same dilemma here. My opinion, and Will, speaking of opinions, Simon Sinek, I want to qualify this statement here before I mention and diss my boy Simon Sinek. I am a Simon Sinek fan. I love his books. I think, Start With Why is a great book. The Infinite Game is another great book he's written. And I love his presentation. I love his presentation style. I am a Simon Sinek fan. Have I convinced you of that, Will?
I'll buy into the scenario that you're building.
Obviously,
you're going to diss him right now.
No, I'm genuinely a fan. But then he posted this on LinkedIn. And, I think what bothered me more than the actual comment were the I'll call them sycophants. Can I say that? People who just like, oh my God, what a great statement, without really analyzing what the statement really means. So here's the statement. To drive sales, make a pitch. To build loyalty, make a friend. Let me say it again, Will. To drive sales, make a pitch. To build loyalty, make a friend. Simon Sinek. What are your initial thoughts on reading that?
So I might have got the wrong end of the stick here, but I'm pretty loyal to Apple as a company, right? So I'm looking at, we were just talking about off air, even though we just had a hiccup in this show, I'm rebuilding a lot of the infrastructure here in the studio, building a lot of like the technology, and it's all based upon Apple products, Macs, that kind of thing. I'm pretty loyal to Apple from the perspective of I wouldn't even consider moving to Windows for mission critical live streaming computers and gear, right? But I'm not a friend of Apple. I'm loyal to them, but I'm not the best friend of what's his face who runs the company now.
Whatever his log name is, I don't know.
Yeah, Tim Cook. I'm not.
Oh, Tim Cook.
I
definitely Google.
I'd definitely go and hang out with Tim Cook, but I wouldn't. I don't feel like I'm loyal to him. I trust him. I'm his best friend. I think Apple's probably a bit of a weird company if you get a few layers down after the marketing team and what they're doing and how closed off it all is. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird statement. Now, translating that into perhaps high deal size, complex B2B sales where you're dealing with an individual at the organization rather than me talking about me being loyal to a faceless organization like Apple. Maybe it holds a little bit of truth, but I'm
gonna plug holes into this thing. Let me tell you, I'm gonna plug holes in. First of all, I don't think Simon Sinek has ever been the sales guy. I don't think Simon Sinek has ever carried a quota. Okay, so just putting that out as a maybe not qualified to make this judgment call yet. Now, to drive sales, make a pitch. In other words, why does it have to be a pitch? The negative connotation with pitch is I'm going in, I'm pitching something. Why am I not going in there to present value? To make a sale, present value. I think that's you know what I mean? The pitch is just so, it's kind of pejorative the way it's being used. And that's just my take. Okay, so I can be totally wrong. Simon, call me. Let me know what you think. And to build loyalty, make a friend. How the hell are you going to build loyalty with a friend? There's like, what is it? One study shows 8 to 9 decision makers in the company. Another one shows like 10 or 11 decision makers in the company. Who am I making friends with? If I have to make friends with all 10 or 11 people, not possible. You know, and so I'm reading this, and what really irritated me is that there were only a few critical, and by the way, by critical, I don't mean negative. People questioned the statement, and then the other 98% was like, this is the greatest statement since sliced bread. And I'm like, I hate what, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, I adore Simon Sinek, great guy, but anything he says, I'm still going to put through my filter going, I don't know, Simon. Let me question that a little bit. On this, I know what he wants to say. If you can be a great salesperson and you can, again, I don't like the friend piece, Will. I'm fighting with the friend piece because companies you're not loyal to Apple because you have a friend there. You're loyal to them because of the value they deliver. Mm-hmm. And that value could be defined as everything's compatible. I plug stuff in and the damn thing always works, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? There's all these things that create value. So to me, it was like drive sales, pitch the value, build loyalty, deliver on that value.
Yep, that makes more sense. And just deliver long-term as well. Because it's one thing to deliver once, but every Apple product I've bought over the past 5, 6, 10 years has just worked constantly over and over and over and over. Yeah. So yeah, I like that. To drive sales, do whatever. Oh, to drive sales, add value. Yeah,
present value. To build loyalty, deliver on that value.
Yep, that makes sense.
That's it. I'm just saying, Simon. Come on. Anyway, so by the way, and also, this is going to tie into that. The Challenger sale is a decade old this month. Did you know that, Will?
So that being a decade old makes me feel old because I was still in the sales role. I was like 3 or 4 years into one of my first sales roles when it came out. So it must make you feel ancient, Victor.
What? Oh, damn. Why'd you have to throw it like that at me? You just coming at me like that. Anyway, I'm going to ignore that statement and just celebrate the folks because I think the Challenger sale, it's in my top 3 all-time best sales books. You know what I mean? And I love the book. And again, I think it was Brent Adamson, and I forgot who the other author was. Matt, what was it? Do you remember his name?
Dixon?
Was that?
Is it Matt Dixon?
I think maybe. But anyway, the other guy too, the Challenger sale. But in there, by the way, one more arrow into the Simon Sinek, caricature here. And that is one of the biggest conclusions, probably the most controversial conclusions in the Challenger sale was that relationship salespeople had a harder time hitting their number. Yep. Because it's not about the relationships. I mean, by the way, let me be clear. The Challenger said, we're all like relationship salespeople. We're a hybrid of many. So it's not that relationships don't matter, but what customers really care about, I think, is, what did they say? Tailor for resonance, teach for differentiation, take control of the conversation.
Yep.
And if you can sell that way, deliver the value that way, help to make a buying decision, that's value.
I remember the first time I read it, and I read teach, tailor, control, or however they break it and split it up. And I was like, that is what I do naturally. As you see from this show, Victor, obviously we've gone back and forth for years now on different podcast episodes, but the audience see as well. I'm a little bit of a contrarian. I like to play devil's advocate. If something is good, I'll try and see potential downsides. If something's bad, I'll always look first for the upsides. And that the Challenger sale fitted me perfectly of going speaking to surgeons when I was doing medical device sales, and they'd be like, well, we've always done it this way. I'm like, well, why is that? Or they'd go, we want to change things up. And I'd go, why is that? And that ability to ask the question of that doesn't make any logical sense. Why do you want to do it? Spot more conversations and won me more deals than probably anything else. But prior to reading that book and being able to communicate the fact that naturally, organically, I lean into that Challenger kind of model. Prior to that, every sales manager I ever had was just like, just go and hang out with people, make friends with people. And this is the somewhat older school world of surgeons, right? Where they want you to go and play golf with them. They want you to take them on a training event where you train them for 3 hours and then you go and get pissed afterwards. So there's
that time is dead. I mean, there was a time where that was a big part of selling, right? Mm-hmm. The relationship aspect of it. But I think we've moved past that, especially in the internet age. I also think that, you kind of highlighted the Toyota way. You keep asking why, almost challenging, which is what the Challenger sales is all about. So I'm going to throw a bone to my man, Simon Sinek. He said he wrote a book called Start With Why. You were onto something there when it comes to selling as well. Because I think by starting with asking the customer, why are you doing this way? I think that's effective. Anyway, see how I try to be nice to Simon on the show?
You just leaning into my methodology, Victor. Just do the opposite of what everyone does, and you'll be right half the time.
All right. Well, I got some depressing news to deliver to our folks in the culture corner of this show, and that is the Great Resignation. Seismic shifts in the economy has hit companies with higher employee quit rates. In all, 20.2 million workers left their employers from May through September. Are you seeing this on your side of the pond? Economy
hits companies higher employee quit rates. I'll tell you what I have seen, Victor. Do you ever use Reddit.com, the social media site?
Occasionally.
So something that's always on the front page at Reddit at the moment is a new subreddit called Anti-Work. And it's not necessarily people who who just want free money and never want to work again. It's people who are riling up against the fact that they get paid minimum wage, treated like absolute shit, and this leads to a story that they share on there. But because it's so highly trafficked on Reddit, there must be not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people consuming that content, looking at it, and upvoting it. And I've never, obviously this exists, people having not the best jobs and people not being happy with it. But there's countless stories within this. And what I'm trying to get out is, it seems like there's almost a trend of people going, this job is rubbish, you're treating me like an idiot, I'm better than this, I'm out of here. Which on one hand, good on you. You should do that. You shouldn't be bullied by employers. On the other hand, hopefully you've got a job to go to, otherwise you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I think again, this is one of those things I always say is 10 to 20 years from now, we're going to look back, somebody's going to analyze this just like the coronavirus and pull out all these, pieces of insight. This will be one of them. And part of the answer to this, the Great Resignation, is what you mentioned. It's not so much the wages, because even now they're offering better wages and people are going, nah, you know what? I'm not coming back. And I think what's happened is that when we hit the pause button last year because of the coronavirus, I think people began to reevaluate, like, why am I doing this? Why am I killing myself? They've had a Zen moment, I think.
I agree. And I had that moment. I know you had a little bit of, I don't know how public you are with your plans and things.
My existential crisis, that one. What do I want to do with the next 4 to 5 years of my life? No. I share that with a lot of people but I was feeling that before the actual coronavirus, sure. The shutdown. But I think that accelerated the process. Like, okay, how do I want to restructure my life now that, remote selling is more viable?
Mm-hmm. Well, I definitely had the realization of, hey, my business is based basically primarily on podcast downloads, right? Which is then based upon how good the podcasts are, the amount of content, and the feedback loop of people not just listening to one episode but listening to multiple episodes. And our podcast downloads for the longest time have just been this incremental, like trickle upwards every month, every quarter. So during the pandemic, I had the moment of, hey, maybe I've just been on this like big treadmill for the past 5-6 years now of just slowly increasing these numbers. What does it mean? What is the end point? What is the point of this business? Is there a monetary value each year that I can hit and then go, okay, I've hit that, I'm going to take 6 months off, or I hit that, I'm going to do this or do that, or the rest of it goes to, we give like a percentage of revenue to charity and stuff. So maybe after a certain point, more money goes to charity, whatever it is. And so I had all these thoughts, and I was definitely spurred on by the pandemic of, hey, if a pandemic leads to the world being just no toilet roll left on the western side of the planet, who knows what could happen next? And so it was a moment for me of taking a step back and going, hey, we've only got a finite amount of time on this planet. Do I really want to be doing this? And the answer is yes, I do enjoy doing it. And that was the conclusion, which is why we're here today and carrying on. But for someone in a crappy job or someone in a sales role who really hates sales, who's a massive introvert, who has no interest in the product that they're selling, but it's just a job and it gets them by, I can understand why a global pandemic, everyone being locked down, the market being in turmoil for a period of time, and still even today, 2 years, 18 months into this, things still being up in the air, with new variants, I can understand and I can appreciate and I can have empathy for people who are looking at this and going, maybe I just want to buy a wooden house in the middle of the woods and just live on my own.
Yeah. By the way, take it on the other side of the spectrum are people who were killing it, doing exceptionally well. Right? They probably, just doing it. And they were like, every year was just, as you say, just racking up that quota, just moving it up, making the money. And I think there's a percentage of people of those, they exist. They're saying, why am I killing myself? You know what I mean? How much is enough type of thing. And by the way, I don't begrudge anybody for wanting to run up the scoreboard on revenue. So don't get me wrong. But I think there's a lot of people who just said, you know what? What do I really want to do? I'm making money. I'm doing well. I got this. I got that paid off. I got this. We all went into reevaluation mode because of that pause button. I think it's a good thing, Will. Overall, I think it's a good thing.
Victor Antonio, let me ask you this. You might not want to share this, as in the numbers, but how do you, for Victor Antonio Industries Limited, LTD, however the company is structured, do you set goals each year for yourself? Because I have a revenue target that me as a salesperson at salesman.org has to hit selling our enterprise accounts, the team kind of memberships for our training product. Because if I don't do that, I feel like I'm not really working in sales anymore and I'm not getting the ups and downs. And I feel like I can talk more congruently about sales because I've got a target. And if I don't hit it, well, the team there's no revenue to pay the team, right? How do you set goals? How do you set them? And how does that look like kind of post-pandemic, if there has been any change?
So I think I shared these numbers that, when last year the pandemic hit, we actually grew like 19%. This year we'll be down about 20%. And so we're back to where we were in 2019. I do not set, the only goal I set is don't do worse than last year. Sorry, I'm very Neanderthal about this. So if I hit a number, I say, let's not do less than that. So let's move that number up. And if we can hit a 10 to 15% increase, I'm always very happy with that. But the thing is, I've also acknowledged the fact that the market doesn't agree with your business plan or your numbers. So I've stopped sweating that number. Do you know what I mean? Well, like sometimes we set a number, it's an aggressive number, we want to hit the number. Yeah, we do everything we can to get to that number. But the reality is, the circle of influence, there's certain things you can't control. So you have to account for that. My whole thing is at the end of the year, did I do everything possible to generate revenue for the company? Or did I leave money on the table? That's the stuff that bothers me. Did I leave money on the table that I could have gone after and that fit my alignment?
Sure. That makes sense. That is very much, have you read Jim Collins' books from like Good to Great? And
I've never read the book. I've been meaning to get around to reading that book, but I had never read that book, I think.
Good to Great. Great book. Really highly recommend it. And if you go on, I don't know what his website, but if you Google Jim Collins, he on his website outlines a lot of the principles from the book. One of the principles in the book, he calls it the 20-mile march. This is something that good companies don't do, but great companies do. And he talks about this idea of rather than peaks and troughs and working dead hard and then being burnt out, the greatest companies on the planet do every day get up 20-mile march. You don't want to walk today. Well, you get up and sod and do the 20-mile march. You're feeling great and you get to 20 miles and you've got full of energy. Okay, just hold off, recharge, go back home, and you do that, and it creates consistency throughout.
That's the big word.
Weeks,
that's the big word.
Months, decades. And it seems very much like that's what your philosophy is of as long as it's better than last year and would you keep going, then it's just time is the barrier as opposed to technology, people, or anything else.
Well, it allows me to manage my anxiety well. Not that I'm an anxious person, but by anxiety, I mean, it's like there's a lot of things you just can't control, so you don't worry about them. And by the way, I want to highlight, because I know you won't be self-promotional about this, but you have on your podcast, if you haven't checked out Will's podcast, check out his podcast. You've had some great guests with some great topics. And so, I encourage people, if you're not listening to Will's podcast, you are missing out. Some of the guests you brought out are actually pretty spectacular. I was listening to a guy, you were interviewing, who was it? I think you were talking about pricing or something like that, but it was quite high level. Well, I was quite impressed with your interview style. Skills on that one.
The reason for that though, Victor, is that I ask dumb questions and don't assume answers, and then let the guest fill in the gaps. So if I ever sound clever on an interview, it's because someone said something clever, and I go, "Yeah, that sounds about right. Tell me more."
It was good. You were asking good questions, so don't undersell yourself. Check out Will's podcast. The other thing I want to mention is that even though there's this high quit rate, people are spending money like crazy here. Will, look at this. Consumer. This is off of retail.economictimes.indianatimes.com, right? Consumers spent $34 billion, Will, from Thanksgiving to Cyber Monday. That's like a 4-day stretch there, really. So according to Adobe Digital Economic Index, consumers spent just on Cyber Monday alone $10.7 billion. Here's the thing. I'm confused. I'm just confused. In the US, we have 100 million people who are not employed. I'm confused, right? We have this great resignation. People say, screw you, I'm done with this stuff, right? But then I also know that credit card debts are accelerating. Well, people are putting stuff on their credit card. And then I see stuff like this on Cyber Monday. And I don't know, I just shake my head going, are we is it like, there's a quote, I don't know who said this. He said, history does not repeat itself. People do. Mm-hmm. And I go, I love that quote, right? And we seem to make the same mistakes, economic boom, we start spending money. Economy goes down, guess what we still do? Spend money.
Well,
anyway,
I like this stat. I'll talk about this article in a second because I read a similar article. It was Adobe data, and they said it was actually this Black Friday and Cyber Monday was less revenue than previous years for the first time first time ever. So I think we need to carefully talk about how much money is being spent if less is being spent in overall. But TV sales go up dramatically when there's downturns.
Yeah,
people spend more on things like TVs because they'll go, well, I'll spend $800 on a TV rather than a $3,000 holiday. I'll spend this on that rather than this and that. So I'd rather people not spend, as long as people aren't going into debt. I think we could probably both agree on this, Victor, to buy a TV.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Buy your TV.
Yeah. I mean,
you spend more time at home.
No, it's amazing. And like I said, and by the way, I do acknowledge that. I think the Cyber Monday numbers were flat from last year, almost the same as last year. And I think the 4-day weekend was actually down like 1 point something percentage points or something like that. It's still a lot of money to be spending. And then as you see credit card debts going up and people don't have jobs here in the US, Will, the payments, the stay-at-home payments, I call them, have stopped. And even the payments to pay mortgages, or not payments. It's, in other words, not allow people to be evicted for not paying. I forgot the word, some forbearance or something like that. That's ended also. So it'll be interesting to see as we move into 2022 how all this begins to play out. Because now when you strip away all the, I'll say the government support systems and a lot of people not working, I think, as they said in the movie 300, we're in for a hell of a night. type of thing. I think we're in for a hell of a ride.
There's something, we've been through a global pandemic and it seems like nothing has broken in the market. There's not been any, it feels like there's not been any huge losers. I know in the Chinese market, there's that real estate development firm that I don't know if they went under, but that was like massive news a few weeks ago. I can't remember what they're called. But it seems like there's been no Lehman Brothers. There's been no this, there's been no that. It seems like everything's bent and burnt, and then the government are printing money all over the planet. Inflation's just about to skyrocket if it isn't already, and it's just been hidden by multiple other mechanisms. And the economy bar is just about to, hopefully it goes bad like this, but it seems like it just might snap at any moment.
That's how I feel. Perfect analogy. I was at a Best Buy, which is an electronics store here. I don't know if you have that over there in the UK, but I mean, the shelves were almost empty, Will, in many cases, especially around the computer side. It was like I had never seen that many empty shelves in an electronics store. I mean, I've seen some of that in the grocery store, but now you're seeing electronics. And, again, trying to buy a car, we talked about that already. As you're saying, it's like something's going to pop, something's going to snap. And I don't know, it just feels like we're there, but it could be just us feeling a little anxiety.
Yeah, well, I know, and I'll share this. We've just done a Black Friday sale over at salesman.org. It's just wrapped up now. Victor, we did it was like nearly 7 times more than we've ever done in a Black Friday sale or any sale. It was it was
crazy. We did the same thing. It was like, these are great numbers. And I'm like, okay. So I like that enthusiasm. What's your conclusion from that?
Well, it could be for two sides. Salespeople are doing great. They've got some money to spend on themselves and improve. Or they're doing so bad that they're like, oh God, last resort, Will's trading. Oh, I hate that dude, but I'll still give it a shot just in case it moves the numbers.
By the way, you bring up a great point. I'm actually optimistic for sales trading next year because I think, we ran 2020, we were running on exhaust fumes from 2019, right? That's kind of my rationalization of this whole thing. And then this year, we're now seeing a slowdown. So I think we've totally run out of fumes now. And a lot of companies have had business just come at them, right? They didn't have to go out to sell, but I got a feeling next year, if we hit a rough patch, sales training will be in high demand again. Even bigger.
Is that how it works for you, Victor? Do you see? If in like, I don't know, 2008, I guess is a long time ago to pull data from your brain box. But
right
when there are troubled times in the marketplace, do you see when salespeople are struggling because of market conditions? Do you see your demand for sales training go up in correlation to that?
Yes. And so it's almost like it's a Great Recession business.
Sure.
Because it is what you're trying to do is retrain your team to find new opportunities, right? Or at least from a motivation standpoint, keep them in the game so they don't get discouraged. So that's when company says, you know what, I think we need to invest money. I think this year, from my perspective, a very limited perspective, I've seen less events like sales events, like kickoff meetings or end of year events than ever before. And I've talked to a lot of speaker consulting friends of mine, and they conclude the same thing. They're saying the same thing.
Sure.
They didn't see a lot this year. So hopefully next year, I hate to say I want the economy to go down so I can go up, but it would help.
Good business model though.
Yeah. But it's like anything else, right? I remember talking to a guy, by the way, total random fact. I'm on the plane. I'm talking to a guy that works for, what's the company? PepsiCo, that sells the Fritos, the corn chips. And I remember we were talking about, it was years ago, we were talking about the recession. He goes, man, we love the recession. He says, because when there's a recession, people now move towards cheaper foods, which is why they buy a lot of this, I don't want to say junk food, but let's say not as healthy food as other
junk food.
It's
terrible
junk
for
food.
you.
Yeah. I'm trying to be nice here. And so I think that there's industries that actually, when the economy goes down, for example, the network marketing industry, the direct marketing industry, when the economy goes down, their business goes up because people are looking for other sources of revenue. So this is like the Ferris wheel, right? When something's up, something's always down. And then when that thing goes to the top, the other thing goes to the bottom. So it's the same.
Fair enough. Victor, should we wrap up with 1 or 2 audience questions here?
Absolutely.
So who knows where these have come from? Oh no, this one's come from YouTube. This is Dean asking, being earlier on in my career, I've yet to experience selling in an economic downturn. What advice or tips do you both have for handling that?
I think the big one, if I could go first, I think the first one is the mindset piece. Somebody's always buying. So that's the mindset you got to have. Somebody is always buying. The question is, how do you then position that value and find those opportunities? When I was selling telecom equipment, we always knew that they had to sustain their customer base, right? So they had to keep upping their equipment, but they wanted to be more measured about it. And so when Will and I were talking earlier about, what do you do when your pipeline is stagnant after 18 months and you don't even know what's in there? Remember, you can restructure deals. So for example, if I'm selling a $500,000 system, and I know that the market's taking a downturn, I know they're not going to spend $500,000. What I'll then do is try to sell them $100,000 just to get my product or my foot in the door. So when the economy turns around, I'm there with them. Also keep in mind is that when the economy goes down, now they really want to talk to you in the sense because they want you to try to help them find solutions to actually help them run their business. Remember, you're not selling a product or service, you're selling value to help them build their business. And so, again, maybe you can't sell them the whole thing, the whole elephant, but maybe you can sell them the snout, the tail, the ear, find something to build or expand your base. And then eventually when the market turns, you were there for them.
For sure. I agree with all that. I would get people to reconsider the value propositions. In that a value proposition in an up market when everyone is doing great might focus on the positives of, hey, we're going to increase the profitability that you already have versus in a downturn when profitability might be at an all-time low. I'd get people to refocus their value propositions on how you can remove perhaps pain from the buyer's life as opposed to these more positive elements of things. And I feel like a lot of sales, and this has come on to the next question here from Frederick in a minute, but a lot of sales is based upon and salespeople fail on poor messaging that's been given to them by marketing or something that they've said 50, 100, 1,000 times, but they've never tested whether that message is actually effective. And it's one thing to do on a cold call because you're usually making calls all day, right? You can test things very quickly. But when you are in a more complex B2B sale and your marketing says, well, here are the 7 features and benefits and here are the positive outcomes of those benefits for the buyer, and you just run through them all, well, now is perhaps a time if those messaging points are not hitting. And you can tell when you share something on a Zoom call or a phone call, you want people to go, oh, or huh, and people to be interested in what you're saying. If people aren't interested, it's probably a good time, but it probably was a good time 18 months ago to rethink some of your value propositions. So that's my thoughts on this. Frederick shared a statement rather than a question, but I'll read it anyway. Victor Antonio, why do newer companies have such stupid marketing and brand names? I wouldn't want to work for any of them.
Man, I don't even know how to answer that question because I see all these different names. And even I got to admit, even sometimes I listen to a name. We've joked about a few names in the past. Like you're like, why did you choose that name? But remember, this is worth remembering. First of all, I think you're being too judgmental and I think you're kind of lying also because you'd work with a company with a funny name if they paid you enough and it was a great package. I mean, when we first heard Apple, look, it's a fruit for God's sakes, right? When you first heard Google, sometimes when we hear names for the first time, they just sound weird, like Yahoo, right? And so I would be a little forgiving on the name and focus on the product they offer and the value they serve.
I think there is a line, though, that's been crossed a few times on this show where if I can't pronounce the company name via reading it on a page, that is a crap company name because how are you going to be referred to that company? How are you going to, oh yeah, the rep from blah, 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 blah has come in. Who? What company? Like at least Yahoo, Google, Apple, it's a succinct name that you can, it's a blank canvas that you can add your kind of
I first heard Gong. I go, Gong, like a gong? Yeah, Gong. I'm like, I mean, name makes no sense. I hear a name like Chorus.
Yep.
Chorus. You're like a singing chorus?
No, people speaking.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that part I got it after a while. The Gong one still throws me off a little bit, like, why Gong? But those are not examples of, those are the names I've gotten used to. But I know we've talked in the past about a couple who you can't pronounce. And even if you pronounce them, they just sound dumb. And so I get you, man. But again, I would, I don't know if I'd go as far as to say I wouldn't work for a company because they had a bad day.
Yeah,
I'd actually turn that into a positive.
You only have to look at what I do over at salesman.org. on our Selling Made Simple training program to know that I don't like trying to overcomplicate things, trying to make things simple. 2 more questions, Victor. First one of the 2. This does not have a name, just says LinkedIn user. Is an SDR, BDR, or an AE role a stable career?
Oh man, that's a good question, because it really depends on the company and the technology they're implementing within that company to determine whether you'll be useful to them or not. I think the SDRs, well, yeah, I got to give an answer. So I'm not going to cop out of this one, Will. I'm going to say that the SDR or BDR or IDR, take your I'll call it XDR. I think the XDRs are more safe than the AEs.
Really?
I think the XDRs are more safe than the AEs because the XDRs know in today's world, they know how to run the systems. They understand the inner workings of the company. They get it. They've worked with marketing. They work with operations. They work with data. They get it. The AEs who have been out in the field may not feel comfortable using technology. We have to go back to the fact, Will. So let me separate the 20%. There's 20% of salespeople who will always be required to go face-to-face and meet with somebody. You're going to always need the people like that. But I really think that as we move toward this techno landscape, I've invented a word called technotropism. I came up with that, Will. Technotropism is our leaning towards technology, much like photosynthesis. You lean towards that, right? And I think we're leaning in that direction. So I think an XDR, in whatever flavor variation you may have, is going to be in a better position to survive than, let's say, an AE.
I completely disagree. To the point of, I'm conscious of time here because I feel like we could have a 25-minute debate on it, and I've got to jump off in 5 minutes or so. But surely, if any role in the B2B sales kind of buyer's journey is going to be automated, it's going to be the SDR role. Surely that we're like 2 or 3 steps. I didn't include one article today, and it was on about chatbots, and the chatbot market has gone from like 10 billion to 50 billion over the course of the past couple of years or so. Do you not think that the SDR role, as much as I love all the SDRs that consume our content, buy our products, and listen live to these kind of episodes, Victor, do you not think that has the opportunity to be not just phased out, but just dramatically disrupted?
Disrupted, I would agree with you. In other words, let me be clear. The SDR, yeah, you're right. The buyer journey, the whole bit, right? But remember, now we can do demos from our laptops, from our computers, from our desks. I don't need to be out in the field. So if we define an account executive as somebody out in the field, Will, that's what I'm specifically referring to.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I would define account executives as people who close deals and manage accounts. So an SDR will set up a conversation, and an account executive will carry on with it. So
then we agree. Now, if you pull the AE into the company, not in the field, they're going to have a career. Sure. I would argue that they would have a better career than an SDR because they're going to know how to close more deals and they can figure out the technology. So I would agree with you.
Fair enough. And I've got one final question. I don't really know how to answer this one. Hopefully you can. What is an awesome sales job, B2B sales job, that you can do by yourself at home, fully self-employed?
Oh man, a contract agent. A contract agent is that you can pick it's almost like nobody pays you a salary, right? So that's the part of it. That's a big deal. But you can go to companies who have a product you want to sell within a certain market niche. So for example, you want to go telecom. I like that. And so I can find 10 companies who have products they want to sell into the market, but they don't want to hire any salespeople. Sell their products, and then they'll give you a percentage. In some cases, they'll give you like a small base salary, like $1,000 a month. Well, if you represent 10 different companies and they're not competitive, that's $10,000 a month. Plus your commissions on top of that. So you can work from home, sell B2B, and be happy.
I've never seen that in the wild.
Oh, I have.
Sounds amazing. Sounds like what I would do for sure.
Yeah, it's like you're a gun for hire.
Yeah.
So you can be right now would be great to be able to do that, because people say, wait a minute. So all I got to do is pay you $1,000 a month, and you're going to push my products. You'll give me my reports. You'll send me whatever the information. Absolutely. In fact, I know you get more than $1,000, but I'm just being very conservative that if that's what you wanted to do, man, that's how I would do it.
Dude, that has got to be then when salespeople are only in sales jobs for like 18 months tops, and that number's going down and down and down. And the gig economy is becoming more prominent, and employers don't want to have contracts with people. I assume, I know things are different in the US, but I assume that if you are an agent, you don't have to pay healthcare insurance and all this kind of stuff on top of it. So that seems like if you've got the skill set, you've got the opportunity to make an absolute killing.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you. So we're 1099. 1099 means you're just a contractor.
Sure.
So right now you can go into the market if you're bold enough, say, and pick 10 companies. Now I would pick 10 I'm just saying 10 is a number, right? I would pick companies that sell into a specific market space. So when you go see that client, you go, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. And each of those products do not compete with each other. They stand alone. So now you got a portfolio of 10 products that you take to the customer. What do you need, Bill? Right? And then you build a relationship so you can close the sale and build loyalty. According to Simon Sinek.
As you're saying that, it's almost setting up like a mini consultancy. So if you were interested in sales technology, you'd go to small businesses and say, hey, you're using bits of napkins and Excel spreadsheets. Let's get you a CRM. Let's get you this conversational analysis set up. Let's get you a database set up. I'll do it all in one invoice as opposed to going to all these companies, going back and forth and getting messed around. It's me, Will, your friendly local sales consultant. I live next door. My office is 3 doors down from you. I can pop over if there's any issues. We can sort some of this out. It seems like almost like am I missing the point there, or is it essentially a little consultancy?
It is. You could, for example, let's use tech stack. You can represent different tech stack companies. And so you go see a company, they're struggling, they don't know what to do. I said, well, I got several products I know that will fit. And you consult on what they would need. So I use this strategy. Well, so I would use direct salespeople. That's one strategy when I want to go after big accounts. Distributors I would use when I needed them to hold inventory for me. So I would use distributors, right? Contract agents I would use, that's what we're talking about right now, where I didn't need to have inventory, but it was almost like it was like a sniper. There were specific markets I needed them to go after, and that's where I would use them. And typically we would pay about, I think, 30% on contracts. Mm-hmm. So if they sold $1 million, that was like, well, just take 30%. So that's a lot of money.
That sounds awesome. Maybe this is a conversation for another time. And this might be an episode. Maybe we can get yourself and someone who's doing this on the Salesman podcast or something. Because if anyone's out there luck at the moment but works hard, entrepreneurship is difficult, creating products is difficult. But if you've got the skill set of selling, maybe we don't need gatekeepers of sales management, sales leadership, interviews that you don't hear back from. Maybe there's an opportunity for people to take their finances, even that step before entrepreneurship where you're creating something new, into that consulting role. I think that could be a really valuable episode.
What's your sales pitch going in? You don't go in there asking for a job. You say, look, you don't pay me unless I sell something. Pay me 30%. Are we good? Good. All right. I'll be back with some deals. That's your pitch.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. I'm going to mull over that. That seems like something I need to investigate further and bring to this audience and the Salesman podcast audience. And with that, Victor, I'm conscious of time here, mate. Anything else to add before we wrap up?
Nothing. I got a webinar coming up called the Big Deal Mindset, December 9th. So go to victorantonio.com. It's going to be a good one. I'm really excited about this one. This is the precursor to my book that I'll release in the first quarter. So the Big Deal Mindset, victorantonio.com.
Amazing stuff. I'll link that in the show notes to this episode over at thisweekinsales.com. That was Victor Antonio. I keep forgetting what you asked me to call you, which is really embarrassing.
Not legend. I don't like legend.
I'll call you legend. Victor Antonio, the legend, not just a legend, the legend, sales legend. My name is Will Barron, founder at salesman.org. That was This Week in Sales. We'll speak with you all next week.